In this video, we're going to talk about what makes a quality perspective so that it increases the probability of quality of life. That's why our channel is dedicated to improve quality of life through increasing your perspective IQ on the most impactful things, which are your health, your assets, and relationship. Now we're going to go into detail what our channel is about and why we come up with this system. So the best thing to do is criticize us, put it on the comments if you agree with us or if we're missing something. I've gone through this many times and it just comes to a point where like people just agree, but I'm asking you to disagree. Look for something so we can get better. So the emotional thing here is that a perspective shift is really a belief shift. Now, belief shift, like the power of belief is very, very strong. Think about all the crazy and incredible things people do just because of belief. Like people kill people, people invent things, people do all kinds of things. Like think about it, if a person believes something, even if it's a wrong thing, like how far are they willing to go and sacrifice things?
Mhm.
Belief is a very strong thing. Even if they believe the wrong things or the right things. Belief is one of those things that is very powerful. Just think the invert. When somebody doesn't believe something, how likely do you think they're going to achieve it?
No, not likely at all.
Not likely at all. So
So,
even if somebody believes it and they think they're crazy, usually the crazy ones are the ones that do it.
mhm.
Like it's anything you have to do, you have to be
Well, it's like the
willing to
people.
believe it.
Yeah, it's like the people that are told them like never walk again, and then before you know it, there they are, like running marathons. So it's like the power of belief is truly a superpower.
It's great. So the power of belief kind of goes down to is how do people believe? Because what happens is they have a certain perspective that makes them believe it.
Hmm.
And that's why we believe so much in perspective IQ. Now, not all perspectives are created the same. Some are worth more than others, and we're going to go into that evaluation system. So the whole thing is to win the game of life, it goes into two parts, the knowing and the doing. So half of it is knowing and the other half is doing. And usually sometimes what makes you know is actually doing the thing.
Hmm.
So we have like an idea
Hmm.
and what people do, and that's why we look at people that are successful because we're like, what did they do? What do
Hmm.
they know that I don't? So I could do, and I can do it, and then find out. Now I know, kind of
Hmm.
deal.
Right. So by doing, you get like the feedback of knowing whether you're going in the right direction or not. Sometimes.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So it's not an easy journey, but it is what our channel is about. So if you watch our channel, the subscribers that we have, we mainly talk about three things and how we invest time and energy into it. So let me go through the whole thing,
Hmm.
the why it's founded that way. So a decision system is really what everybody has is their operating thing. Now, how does our decision system work? It's really directly affected by our perspective.
Hmm.
So, like the reason you make certain decisions, it's constituted by the foundation of the perspective you have.
Hmm.
So people have different perceptions. They would look at different things, and that's what affects their decision.
Right. Neither they're aware, they're not aware. Maybe the possibilities they don't know about, they don't ever take into consideration.
Right. So the whole thing is if you have a certain perspective, it's going to affect your decision. So some people have better perspectives than others. How do we know they have better perspective? Because they have better results. Because that's
Hmm.
really what it comes down to it. Everybody that's walking around is the accumulation of all the decisions they made in their life and what they naturally couldn't decide. So they
Hmm.
couldn't decide certain things, but given those tools, the decision is accumulation that they have so far in life. So if you see somebody that is in good shape, see, that's right away an accumulation of decisions they made.
Hmm.
Now, if they're in shape and they're young, usually it's not that they made the decisions, it's just they happen to be young. But if they're older and in shape, you know that they didn't make the decisions like, say, somebody that's out of shape, overweight is.
Hmm.
So that's like an easy way to do it. So a decision, it really goes down into the four P's. The first thing is when we make a decision, like we make it so quick that we don't really realize what we're doing. So the first thing that we do is that we look at the possibilities. Now, the possibilities doesn't mean that we know all the possibilities. It's just what comes to mind at our time of making a decision.
Hmm.
So sometimes people make a decision and then somebody else says, "How come you didn't do this?" I go, "I didn't think of it." That means they didn't think of the possibility at that time.
Or they weren't aware of it. Hmm.
Right, they weren't aware of it. So the first thing is you list kind of like your brain is a supercomputer. It goes through all the possibilities. This is the first one. So the first P is what's possible. Possible, whatever. And then the second one, out of all these possibilities, you put preferences. Prefer, where you prefer.
Hmm.
Okay, so you're like, okay, like say you're gonna go eat at a restaurant. Well, you think about all the possibilities. Where can we go? This and this and that. And then the second thing is what you prefer. So this is where your valuation comes. Your valuation system comes in. Okay,
Hmm.
so we'll get back to that one. And then after that, because we do this so quick, the next one is your probability.
How likely is it to happen?
Probability, whatever. So the probability, possibilities, preferability, and probability. The next one is the payoff. Payoff, and this one comes in two parts, which is also incurs a cost. So in other words, we're gonna go to a restaurant. You think about all the possible. Hey, what do you want to eat today? Well, there's pizza, this and this and this and this. And they're like, what about this? Oh, I forgot about that restaurant. See, that's out of sight. That's not a possibility. So once you go into the possibilities, you go in what you prefer. Ah, you want to eat Chinese today? Oh, you know what? Chinese sounds good. Oh, blah 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 blah. So you prefer, and then you do. What's the probabilities? Is there a Chinese restaurant around the area?
Are
Or
they
maybe it's
open?
too
Or
far. So sometimes we like Chinese, but to us it's a little bit far, so we don't eat Chinese food. So we always think about the possibilities in our area, and then what do we prefer?
Hmm.
And then sometimes we're like, well, it's we prefer Chinese, but it's not in the area. So we're like, okay, we prefer because of the cost of
Hmm.
traveling.
Hmm.
So we basically go, what's possible? What do we prefer? And then what are the probabilities of actually getting that? So like, oh, we have I really want to eat this, but it's on the other side of town. See, the cost is too much, so
Hmm.
it's not very probable that we're going to eat that. By the time we get there, it's going to get later, so forth and on. So we actually go through those things, and that's our decision system.
Hmm.
So our decision system is very affected by our valuation system. Now this in here also goes into what you perceive or you believe that could happen. So right here is where the belief comes from. So if you don't believe something is possible, it's not going to go through these things.
Hmm.
You can imagine, oh, I can win the lottery, but how, like the belief that you're going to win, you might think you win. That's why you buy it. But if you don't believe you're going to win, then you really don't
You're
buy
not
it.
going to
Like I
buy the
don't buy
ticket.
lottery tickets. I don't believe I'm going to win. I believe that if I work hard, I have more of a chance than actually buying a lottery ticket. That's my belief. That's why I don't buy any. So the whole thing is, if you believe your perspective is a certain way, it affects your possibilities. And then it affects what you prefer. And that's your valuation system. Everybody's always doing what they prefer to do. If you, their valuation system is based on people's actions. They can say they want this, they want that, but really it's what they do that we believe. Because what they do gives the results.
Hmm.
And that's what we believe. We believe in results. We don't believe in theory, but believe in results. What is, in other words, the truth.
Hmm.
Okay? So that's what we're all after. So after you get into your decision system, you go into your valuation system. Now, valuation system depends on everybody's perspective, but there's three foundations that really go into a universal value system. So that's the whole thing. So in going to the valuation system, let's erase this real quick. The valuation system goes into, let me see here. That's right. Okay. So everybody has these two
Resource.
resources, and they're called time and energy. Okay. So everybody has
You always
time
forget this.
and energy. Yeah, I just write
It's
whatever.
Tim. Tim and energy.
So time and energy. So time and energy. So everybody has time, and we measure this in hours, days, and all that stuff. Okay. And then we have a certain life expectancy.
Hmm.
And then energy, there's two types of energy. There's physical energy, and then there's mental energy. Mental energy is your attention, basically. And your physical energy is what you do physically. So you have energy and time, and that's the resources that we all have. And then you have to spend this regardless. Either
Yeah.
you spend it or you waste it, basically. You spend it or invest it, basically. You can invest. Okay? So, what would you do this and spend and invest in? Well, the most valuable things that I think are, according to my evaluation system, and this is what we talk about, is there's three things. Now, the most valuable thing that I think is health.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, why? Because if you don't have health, there's really nothing else. Health is just another branch off of time. If you have good health, that means you have time.
Yeah, more time, most likely.
Yeah, if you're like 80 years old, you don't have much time. And
Mm-hmm.
you probably don't have much energy. So, health is kind of like another way of saying time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how old are you is basically how long you've been on this earth, what have you done, and how much time you have left. Is basically what you're doing. It's like the older you are, the less time and energy you have.
Mm-hmm.
So health is kind of like it's like a way to measure your time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
So health breaks down to two things: your physical health and your mental health. Your mental health is just a fancy way of saying your self relationship. Okay? So that's why our channel is called To Win Begins Within, because this is really where it starts. Your mind in knowing what you believe and your perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we are focused on perspective IQ, because if you have quality perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
then it changes your beliefs and so forth. Okay? So the whole thing is when your mental health starts, when you have a healthy mind, then a healthy mind will create a healthy body. So this is where your attention goes, your energy flows. So where your attention is, your mental energy, your physical energy goes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have good mental health, your good attention, you'll put it, what's the most important is your physical health. That's why people, when they want to start, they want to improve, they start healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Because subconsciously, we know that's the most important thing. Because if you don't have your body, if you don't have your mental health, nothing else really matters.
Mm-hmm.
You can be the healthiest, best looking guy or girl. And if you don't have good mental health, that's where suicide comes from,
Mm-hmm.
the self delete. So that's when we talk to people, we're actually gauging their mental health. Oh, they look healthy, they look nice, they're
Mm-hmm.
attractive. We'll talk to, oh, wait, he's not all there. See, that's a mental health indicator.
Mm-hmm.
So the most important thing is health. And after that is your assets. Now, assets breaks down into two: your intellectual assets and your physical assets. Your intellectual assets is the skills that you developed as a person. That means your intelligence. So if you have good intelligence, you use it for everything else. Of course, you have to be healthy and all that stuff to have good intelligence. But if you have intelligence, again, it gives you the doorway to everything else.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we like to learn, because learning is really a progression thing.
It's a way of improving, right?
Exactly. So that's the next one. And physical assets is actual things that you need, like a
Like your
house, a
house, your
car,
money.
stuff like that. Now, some people go into really luxury things that are really not necessary, but basically, physical assets is like you need a hammer. As long as it works, it doesn't have to be a $20,000 hammer. It can be a $5 hammer
Mm-hmm.
and still work.
As long as it
So
gets the
that's
job
the
done.
reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can have a luxury car and stuff like that, but that's to signal status, but it's not necessarily
A need.
a point A to point B kind of instrument. That's a signaling of I'm worth more, and therefore I'm perceived more value. I have an abundance, and that's like a mating strategy. So we go to the third one is relationships. So relationships breaks down into your self relationship, which actually is your mental health, and the second one is your intimate relationship. Is in order of importance, and then usually it's your family relationships, and then your friend relationships, and then associative relationship. So intimate relationship is pretty self-explanatory. It's who you choose to be intimate with, and then your family relationships, and then the friends is like who you like.
Mm-hmm.
Your associative relationship is any relationships you have an association with. So people work let's say employees or people
Co-workers,
co-workers or people
people
at
at the
the
gym.
gym, or you're driving on the freeway. You have a relationship with fellow drivers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an associative relationship. Everything else falls into that, like an American, or if you're a national from Japan. So see, that's a relationship. You guys are from the same country or whatever. So that one, it goes this one. And this is what I think your evaluation system, your decision system should be based. Whenever you're making a decision, you should always base it. How is it going to affect my time and energy, which is my time and energy, which is a cost, to get a payoff in my health. So if you're doing something, is it going to be beneficial for your physical health and your mental health? So see, that's the evaluation system on how you make a decision. The thing that's key is prevention first. You want to conserve what you have first. So you want to prevent regression and create progression in that order.
Hmm.
You don't want to lose what you have, in other words,
Right.
first. That's the first step. And then the second step is you want to improve it. Like you don't want to make your get sick and then go lift weights. No, you just don't want to get sick in the first place and then go lift weights. Or you want to prevent injury, because if you don't prevent injury, then you're not even qualified to go even exercise. So prevention is first and then creation. So anytime you make a decision, the most important thing is your health. Your time and energy is spent or invested in your health. After you're done with that level, then you do your assets. That's when you hear girls say, I want a guy who has his shit together, meaning he has his health and his assets. Because if he's not taking care of himself and he doesn't have the assets, then why would he be in a relationship?
Hmm.
And think about it the other way. The next one would be relationships. Is it good to have relationships when you don't have your shit together? No, it's not attractive. How about a relationship
Or it
when you're
makes it
not
more
healthy?
difficult.
No. You have to have it in these steps. So once you have your health and your assets, and like teenagers, usually they're pretty healthy because they're young, and their assets they don't have to worry
They're
about
taken
bills and all
care
that
of.
stuff. They're taken care of. That's why they just focus on relationships. Just horny ass teenagers walking around. That's why we do that. We focus on this. We focus on boys and girls, and we focus not even on our family because they've always been there. We focus on friends. See, their priorities are different, but
Hmm.
their family has their back. Their friends don't. When shit goes down, family has their back.
Most of the
So
time, yes.
this is an evaluation system on the most important things, and this is the basis on how to make your decisions. This sounds good in theory, but this is what happens. Until shit happens, until they're getting divorced, they want to get their health and their assets straight. Or if they don't have their assets, then their relationships suffer. And if their health suffers, then everything else doesn't matter.
Hmm.
So that's why it's put in that area. If you're doing good in all these, you usually go to the D. That's why it's life is hard. And after this, you really go to D is desires, and that is whatever you want.
Hmm.
So some
That's usually
people,
when you get into like the more luxurious or the expensive things,
exactly. So a lot
pleasures.
of people put their desires before everything else.
Hmm.
Like, give me an
Like
example.
vices, maybe like
Vices.
drinking, gambling,
It's
uh,
stuff that doesn't really
or
create or
mhm,
prevent of an investment of your time and energy.
right, like they buy like the expensive house that they can't really afford at the moment. Also, hmm,
Exactly. So that's the
decrease.
whole thing. So once you have your decision system is all this, and you have a valuation system, and you base it on this, it's like, how am I going to prevent what I already, not to lose what I have, which are these three things, the most important. And then after you got those in level, you want to create progression is to increase those things. Who doesn't want better relationships? Who doesn't want better assets? Who doesn't want better health? It's not like you get to good health and you stop. You got to keep going. And there's a
Hmm.
maintenance cost to it. So that's the cost. You got to always focus on those three things. Now you can say, okay, well, I can have health and assets and don't need relationships. Relationships, this world was born through a team effort. Everybody needs everybody else. Like now we live in a world where it's like Trey said, you can live on your own.
Hmm.
But when you were born, you needed somebody to raise you.
Hmm.
You weren't going to do it. And what happens is that when you're by yourself, it's kind of like saying, you know what? If you're a constructive person and another constructive person comes in, and aren't they going to be more constructive together? Yes. So if you want to be by yourself, you're actually denying yourself for that synergy with somebody else. It's kind of like you have your left hand and your right hand. They work together, but you can say, I can do everything with my right hand. But yes, but it makes a big difference having two hands. And that's what a relationship is.
Hmm.
And what happens is that we have these people that are growing old and they want to be independent or whatever, and their happiness they're being lonely. A lot of people are lonely, and guess what? We don't hear about it. Why? Because they're lonely. They got nobody to talk to. So that's the whole thing. So
Right.
once you have your decision system and you have your evaluation system, that's why we talk about these three things.
Hmm.
That's all we talk about: health, assets, and relationships. And we go into details in our channel. How do we do it? But that's the whole thing that we talk about. We're going to say something there.
No.
So when we go into that, we're basically doing make sure you spend your time and energy on things that are worth it. And what happens is that people go back to these until they start losing it. Until they get unhealthy, they go back on track. They start losing the house, not paying the bills, they get back on track. And they start losing somebody they know that is good for them, they get back on track. Instead of working on it in the first place. So this quality perspective is to give you, once you know this is the knowing part, then we talk about examples so you get to do stuff. Now there's infinite ways to get to the right answer. There's not 100% deal, but there are some. They're just common principles that we talk about. And that's why we talk about health, assets, and relationships. Desires is up to you guys. That's when you have these down. But there's all kinds of ways to get to the right answer, and that's what we talk about is knowing first and then doing.
The different ways are the perspectives that we offer.
So, friendly reminder, if at any time you got value from this video, hit the like button because that tells us to make more of what you like. And don't forget to subscribe for more perspective IQ. So if you have quality perspective IQ, you're going to get more probability of a quality of life. So that's what our whole channel is about. That's why we focus on those things. Now, this is continuous to watch us till you can get the perspective. So once you get this thing, a lot of the decisions that we talk about is what most impactful in your life. Like it sounds obvious. This is when RON comes into picture. RON stands for ridiculous, obvious, but necessary. Like this is ridiculous. Sounds ridiculous, sounds obvious, but nobody does it because a lot of people don't really know it. If they know it, then how come they're not doing? Because they really don't know until shit hits the fan. Until they're like, oh man, I regret everything that I did, blah, 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 and this and that. So me, I don't believe in working. All I believe is improving. And what happens, they look very similar, but they're very different. Somebody that's working and improving looks like the same thing. They're working on themselves, they're improving on themselves. That could mean the same thing, but they're working doesn't mean necessarily that they're improving.
Right. Because, well, and two, I think working has like that negative stigma associated with it. Like it's a bad thing. So that's not really true.
Exactly. Working on yourself, investing on yourself. Once you get that intellectual asset, that intellectual knowing that you see these things and you know what's the most valuable and you actually stick to what's more valuable, aren't you going to have a higher probability of making the right decisions to have a better quality of life? So we go into details about these things. That's why a lot of people, like the best thing is, they want to improve their health because they're unhealthy, or they want to improve their health so they can get a better relationship. Like a lot of people that go to the gym, it's because they went over there to look good so at least somebody fucks them. That's basically it. Or they want to fuck somebody. But that's worth it. That to have their mental health in check. Because, oh, she's a hot girl, but she's a crazy bitch. See? She's really healthy, but not mentally healthy. Or that guy, he's this, he's that,
really cute,
but he's alone. Something's wrong with him. So, mental health. Or he got his shit together, this and this and this and this. Oh, I want him. Oh, well, he's married. No wonder he has all these qualities. So that's the whole thing. Like all the decisions we're making is based on evaluation system. Now, a lot of people's evaluation system is not as good as they think they are. They think that because they know what they want and what they want is the right thing. And it's not true. It's these things. I don't care if you think which way you got is your way to get healthy. The truth is that you need to get healthy, whether you like it or not. So there's different ways to achieve that principle, that end result, and that's what we kind of talk about. But that's the main deal, and that's what our channel is about. You want to say anything, Sarah?
I was just gonna say that, like, since we focus on these utilities, is what I call them, and I think you do too. The biggest one, though, and it's one of your favorite things, and I don't think you've mentioned it, is prevention. So it's being proactive and just avoiding the unnecessary things that can potentially harm any one of those utilities.
If you look at wisdom, like a lot of people get a lot of wisdom out of the Bible. What happened is that the wisdom out of the Bible is that people are giving you their feedback. So I done this. This is what happens. I'm telling you to trust me. I'm giving you the information of knowing without you doing it. So in other words, don't touch the stove. I touch the stove. Here's the thing. But a lot of us are like, no, I'll find out for myself. And that's wise people do wise things. And what happens is it's okay not to know, not to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's taking somebody else's word that they know it and you don't do it. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the whole point of passing wisdom on.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom is just feedback without doing the work.
Well, see, we love the feedback and the wisdom from people when they make mistakes because then we think, oh, well, I'm not going to do that. Unfortunately, we don't have the same receptiveness when they tell us something when they obviously have the results that it does work, because that's when we're like, no, I want to do it myself. So it's good that we do learn from their mistakes, but at the same time, a lot of us don't take that advantage and incorporate
Well,
their.
like one of the biggest ones is like when rich people say money doesn't make you happy, and everybody's, well, I want to find out for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, do you really want to work hard, make millions of dollars, and find out the money wasn't as important as you thought?
Mm-hmm.
See, why do like rich people that they're billionaires? When they're old, they say they'll give all the money that they have to
For
get the
more time.
time back. It's really to get their health back.
Mm-hmm.
They'll give all the assets that they have because now their intellectual assets knows what's the most valuable thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of people say that, but it's like, okay, once you have your health, your assets, and your relationships, then like what do? You
Mm-hmm.
you keep doing things that prevent from losing them. And what happens is that when you start seeing the world and you have the things that we take for granted and people don't, then you're kind of like, wow, I'm really grateful. And that actually adds to your mental health because you want to have peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's like one of the ultimate things. Peace of mind. I have peace of mind because somebody has my back. I have a good intimate partner. My family has my back. My friends have my back. That gives you a sense of peace of mind
Mm-hmm.
because that improves your mental health. People that are not suffering from mental health is usually because they're not accepted. They're not doing something correct to be accepted in the relationship. They have bad relationships. That's why a lot of people don't. The people that don't like people is because they're not liked by people. If people like all
They
people
probably
love
don't
you,
even
then you
like
have like
themselves.
it's easier to have good relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And if all people love you, that means that you have the
Capability.
capability of being social and being working with the synergy with people. And that's what it is. That's like the most important things. And that's what we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So we keep talking about it over and over, but that's what we need to be reminded.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the whole channel is about.
Right. So I couldn't argue with him when we were learning this and he explained it to me. I couldn't
Well,
come
I
with
came
any
up with
word.
this with a lot of the things that I learned through life. In life, people's point is to get a collection of wisdom and good things and put it through the filter of your life. And then you put your spin on it and then you construct something and you get that genius out and you give it to the world. So when you give it to the world, it's like passing on baton. I did all this work, I pass on baton. You take my work and then you add your work and everybody else's work
And you
and
progress.
you keep progressing, and that's contributing to humanity so that they progress. We have all these tools because all these people have done things. They're just constant batons to everybody else. So you're just doing your part.
Mm-hmm. So I'd just be curious if anyone has a different perspective. I'd like you to comment, please, because I really am curious to
If
see
you haven't
anybody's.
subscribed, subscribe now because we're only doing this for everybody.
Mm-hmm. We
So like
benefit,
we
and
want the
hopefully you
best
guys do
for you.
too.
So this is I have worked for years coming up with these things, and I've done a lot of work to make it so simple. But the reason that we have to make a lot of videos for it is because it gets complicated real quick.
It's complex.
So
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing is we will get into the valuation system, we'll get into the decision system, and we'll put it in everyday scenarios. So that the more reps that you put in different scenarios, the better the picture will get for you guys. The better perspective IQ. Thank
Exactly.
you.